Well, look, there was a range of views expressed, and I came away actually very impressed. And I thought, which other countries on earth would this actually happen, where a range of people with a range of views can come together in one place, celebrate being celebrate New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, but also actually express views, and I don't think of anywhere else that I could think that could have happened.
Ngāpuhi wants you to kill the treaty principles bill in its tracks, will you?
Well, again, our position's well established on that. As you know, there is no support, no commitment, no intention to take it beyond that. It's been a long-standing commitment of the National Party not to pursue a referendum at all. I appreciate it's a different position from the ACT Party, and part of that is as a coalition government. That's what we've agreed to do.
Have you heard anything today?
Sorry, Mikey?
There's been some criticism of your speech that it didn't focus enough on the treaty. Should you have spoken more direct about the treaty and cut out a lot of the forward future stuff?
Well, actually, our speech was designed, in fact, all people speaking in the forum after the Pōwhiri were actually to talk about two questions. We were given two questions to answer as part of the forum, which was, one, what do you think the vision of New Zealand looks like by 2040? And the second bit was, what needs to happen, therefore, to hit that vision or start that vision in the next term? So it's in the context of that I gave my remarks. But what I'd say to you is, I think, if you listen to what I was saying up front, we should be very proud of the treaty. It's part of our past, present and future, and it's something we're going to continue to work at.
Were you proud of the way?
Sorry?
You don't think that criticism is warranted?
No, I don't. No, I think I was there to deliver an address that was really about where New Zealand was going in 2040, and then be able to talk very specifically about the program for the next 3 years. And I appreciate there's lots of conversations going on. A lot of our conversation with iwi leaders over the last, even the last, has been exactly that. We've had a full team here over the last few days. We've gone off and visited social housing projects. We've gone off and talked about some of the issues that we've got and where we can work together, and that's been pretty exciting.
You came with a pre-written speech that you read verbatim that didn't address any of the challenges to you today. Why did you do that?
Again, just understand the protocol that was set up for today. There was 3 te reo speakers from each side in the formal Pōwhiri, and then Ben was running a session for a panel, which was actually a forum panel, which was designed to ask 2 questions. And so it's in that context I gave my remarks. I also prepared written notes because I actually wanted people to hear my language straight and clear about what I was standing up for.
The Minister says that he wanted to hear you speak more from the Parliament.
Well, there'll be plenty of chances for me to do that, and I'm doing that one-on-one in my conversations with iwi up and down the country, and that's where I do that. But today was a day where I felt actually formal remarks was a good thing.
Simon. As Prime Minister.
Are you telling us that the iwi have all come together and all sorted out on the mana whenua together and you didn't know that they wanted you to talk about security and...
Well, I did talk about it. I did talk about it today. And I've spoken with them at Iwi Leaders Forum. I've spoken with them individually when I've met with individual leaders as well. We've had those conversations in those places. That's been entirely appropriate. But today was a day where I was tasked with actually talking about 2 questions about our vision for 2040 and what we're going to do in the first term. That's what we did.
As Prime Minister,
Sorry.
Did Winston Peters, the man you chose to be your deputy, disrespect the crowd today?
Look, you'll have to talk to Winston, but he had an engagement that he had to get to, apparently, and that's what he did. So I think with Winston being Winston.
Is that appropriate?
Sorry?
He told them to get an education and to cut to the crap. Is that appropriate?
Well, again, what we're talking about is there is a real challenge in education across New Zealand at the moment. It's something I feel very passionate about. It's something I've talked about since I became the leader of the National Party and continue to do so. Those are the issues that actually, when we're sitting with iwi leaders one-on-one, those are the things that we are talking about. Is how do we do education? How do we actually do housing? How do we actually get infrastructure in place? Those are the things that we talk about.
Sorry,
Mikey. Oh, that was incredibly impressive, and I took a lot from it. Again, as I said to you, my big takeaway from today is that where on earth would you actually see this happening today? We're actually people with a range of views. We may not all agree on it, but actually come together to actually express them. That's rather unique and special. I can't think of other countries anywhere in the world where that happens.
Were you happy to have... point, as Prime Minister and as leader of the coalition, were you proud of the way that your coalition partners, your deputy Prime Ministers, conducted themselves on the marae today?
Well, they were there speaking as they were invited to do so, and they're free to speak as they wish, and that's up to their individual decision.
Proud of the way they conducted
well,
themselves on the marae?
As you know, we're in a coalition government. We don't all sound the same. We don't all say it the same.
Opinion.
Yeah, I'm giving you my opinion, which is that we don't say it the same. We won't be the same, and we will say things differently. And we actually have enough space to be able to do that. What we're aligned around is actually the core things about actually how we improve this country, and that's actually what a lot of our conversation with iwi leaders has been about as well. Sorry, Richard.
Is it time for the government to really address the guts of Article 2 of Te Tiriti about tino rangatiratanga, which can be interpreted as a form of sovereignty. And that's the way that it's being talked about now, particularly in the light of the scholarship of Ned Fletcher and people like that there is a real mood, mana matahaki, within Māoridom for some form, more control over their own affairs.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's what we support as well. We are a party, particularly a government, that is actually about making sure there is localism and devolution, and that those closest to the problems should solve the problems. We should partner and work with those that can solve those problems and realise those opportunities that we have. That's what we've been talking about, and that's where there has been very good alignment. Our fundamental belief is localism and devolution. We do not believe in centralisation and control through Wellington. That is a political, ideological belief system of the National Party and certainly our government.
Prime Minister, this marae belongs to Winston Peters and to David Seymour. They whakapapa to this marae. So actually their performance, they can perform however they wish. So there shouldn't be a comment by anybody else apart from the iwi.
Well, my view is that, as I've said to you, from forming a coalition government, I appreciate that we've had a previous government where everything had to be the same and everyone had to sound exactly the same. That is different. We're in a three-party coalition government, and as I've said to you, we're united on the core things that matter the most. People will express it as different personalities, as different leaders in the ways that they wish, and they were free to do that today.
Can I just in respect to the future, your future that you outlined today, does Te not play a part in that?
It plays a massive part in it. That's exactly what I spent the first part of my speech talking about, was the context from 1840 through to where we sit today, and actually saying that is really important, that we actually continue to make the treaty part of our past, our present and our future.
Can you listen to the kōrero on your getting across your message? You're up about lifting standards for all, you're in it for everybody, not just one particular group. Do you think that sort of messaging is actually having an effect and people are picking up?
Well, look, I'm just talking about the philosophy of our government. We've been in power just over 2 months. Let's put it in perspective. We've already done a tremendous amount of work if you think about the workload we had before Christmas and what we've now come back early in order to get going again with another full-on 4 weeks when we get back to Parliament as well. What we are doing is we're engaging with everybody. And so, I have been meeting with iwi leaders since I became leader of the National Party. Well, I think they are. I hope people will start to see it as more important. Whether they get it or not, I'm less hung up on the communications of it. What I'm more interested on is the outcomes, Sorry, Joe?
You said that you were coming to Waitangi to listen.
Yeah.
What is one message that you heard today that was perhaps new or that you will take away from today and actually think about and how you can respond to it?
Yeah, look, I took away, again, what I heard a lot was actually wanting to work together with this government. I thought today was actually quite special in the sense of there was genuinely a sense of, unity sitting in the country in that conversation. The fact that we had very different opinions, as I said to you, we don't have to sound the same, speak the same, but there was actually a common purpose that actually everybody, irrespective of their views or their positions or policies that they supported or don't support, actually was united in actually advancing New Zealand. And that was a pretty consistent theme, I thought, from all speakers. Well, that gives me great confidence that actually we can focus on a common big picture about where we're heading to. We have differences along the way, and we can still within that have different voices and be respectful of that.
And do you think that as Prime Minister you spent enough time at Waitangi this year, given that level of concern among Māori about it?
Oh, we have. We have been here, and we've had a big contingent of ministers at Iwi Leaders Forum, probably the biggest I had heard from any other government that had been there in their first meeting. The second thing is we've had a great program, and so we went out and looked at Utukura, where housing is a real challenge there in the Hokianga. We've been and looked at other housing projects. We've gone off and looked at some of the infrastructure projects that are making a difference. Other parts of our team, I had to go home to Auckland on Saturday with the Chinese New Year celebrations, but the rest of our team over the course of the weekend have been up to the furthest part of the north, seeing a whole range of regional economic development projects and understanding what's actually happening here. We're going to leave here and actually spend a bit of time on housing, because housing is really important. And housing, again, is one of those problems which we shouldn't have that problem in New Zealand. But successive governments haven't actually been able to crash through and actually get rid of the red tape, the consenting, the fast tracking that's needed to do it, or haven't partnered sufficiently with Māori to actually build proper housing. And I see lots of great examples. So this week has been really good for us and our team, because we've actually seen some really cool things that we say, hey, that's fantastic. That's actually a solution for us going forward, where we get the money out of Wellington, partner up, and actually deliver a solution for people.
Last couple.
Sorry.
Was the reception of David Seymour within your expectations?
expectations today, or did aspects of it surprise you?
Look, I came here thinking we'd be challenged and there'd be a range of views around the table, around the conversation, which there was. That's to be expected, and so it was, pretty much as I expected.
But the scale, so the scale and the content, I suppose, and the volume of his reception was within your expectations. That was something that you...
Well, I understand there's really big differences. I think that the trick is, as you saw in a number of speakers, that actually for us to be able to go forward as a country, you actually can express your different views, but you actually have to listen to the other side, and you actually have to understand where someone's coming from, and you have to be respectful doing that. At moments there wasn't full respect. I appreciate that, but I think at the end of the day, it was actually managed. At the end, you heard Mere's comments, which I thought were really wise and sound, and actually enabled everyone to listen to each other properly.
Tiffany just told us that he offered an apology to you guys as a result, or from what happened, the interruptions, the crowd drowning out Seymour. Is that heartening that that's apology has been offered?
Yeah, look, again, I know there's a lot of focus often on the drama on Waitangi, but honestly, you have to see through that noise, and you actually have to look at what's going on here. And what we have as a country that has a great future ahead of it, there are a range of different views. I get that, there's a range of different views, but we can have those conversations in a respectful way. So I felt that Ngāpuhi had worked really hard to make sure this was going to be a good event and a successful event, and so I appreciate those remarks, but it was a good conversation.
Would you be happy with the same format next year?
Sorry?
Would you be happy with the same format next year?
Oh, again, those are decisions for the Waitangi National Trust to determine how they can keep improving it each year. That's up to them. Sorry? No, I didn't see anything, no.
Speaking to people on the grounds of the last few days, a common theme comes up that they feel that this government is taking away their Māoritanga. Can I get your response to that?
Well, I mean, we're not. I mean, we want Māori to be incredibly successful. We're incredibly frustrated. You couldn't say to me that the last 6 years under the previous government have been a tremendous success for Māori. Go look at the economic outcomes. Go look at the housing outcomes, the education outcomes, the health outcomes, the investment outcomes. They've been very, very poor. And so that's the engagement that we want to have as a government, is actually we want to genuinely get things done. I know we keep talking about it, but I'm telling you that's the thing that makes the difference. And so we want to partner with Māori, with a range of people across the whole of New Zealand to work on getting things done. I went and saw some water projects right up here. Water up here transforms the productive land and therefore the economy. And we saw a group, a trust that had come together in the far north that had actually built 3 dams, and actually that water is really important because it's going to make a whole bunch of other land very productive. The fundamental difference between Kiri and Kaikooi is actually water over many, many years. And one has done well with water, one hasn't done so well without water. And so there's a real opportunity for us to actually make sure that infrastructure is in place.
So why is the message getting lost that this is what you want, that you want better outcomes for Māori? Is it because your coalition partners are dominating the narrative?
I don't think it is getting lost. I think in my conversations with iwi leaders up and down this country have been incredibly productive. We've had many fantastic sessions, and importantly we have follow-up work plans where we're actually working these issues through quarter by quarter. So we're getting on with the business. I appreciate there'll be a range of interpretations from the commentariat. That's all fine, but we're focused to get things done because is what this country actually needs right now. It needs a big turnaround. Sorry.
You make the point that a forum like this probably doesn't happen anywhere in the world, certainly doesn't in Australia between the government and First Nations people, but also from a country that's just had an incredibly damaging referendum outcome for Indigenous people. Most First Nations Australians would say shut down the idea of any kind of referendum where a white majority is making decisions on an First Nations minority.
Yeah, I won't comment on Australian domestic politics, obviously, but what I just say to you is that we are incredibly proud of actually our approach here in New Zealand. When I look at the treaty and we think about, as I said, it's caused pain and suffering along the way, and there's been lots of arguments, but actually we are a better country because of it. So we are going to continue. Sorry.
There certainly could be lessons learned from the example that Australia has just set in a bad way.
Well, again, as I said to you, we're in coalition government. Our position's really clear. The government's not supporting that legislation beyond first reading. I don't know how to be any more clearer about it, but that's where we are.
Being really proud of where we are.
Yes.
Why would you let us get to the stage where you've got this legislation coming and it's going to fail?
Well, I think we are very proud about it, and actually we're very proud that we've got a lot more work ahead to work together. Well, as you know, we're in coalition government. Each party has slightly different objectives. Our objective is really clear, and that's what we've agreed to.
Can you categorically, can you categorically rule out National supporting it past first reading?
Our position's well understood. I've talked about that ad nauseum. We have no intention, no plan to support it, no commitment to do so. Our long-standing position of the National Party is there will be no referendum. That's exactly what we say. Go look at our coalition agreement. That's where we are.
So
awesome. Sorry, last question.
So then do you accept that you're causing a divisive debate for no reason?
Look, I mean, it is what it is. There is a commitment from this government to actually support this bill through to the first reading, and there's no commitment beyond that. What we are focused on is actually getting alongside Māori, working on plans to actually improve outcomes, and that's what I'm going to do. So last question.
That's a failure of your negotiation powers, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry?
Are our forces over there already?
Yeah, in the UK. We've got 65 in the UK working with the Brits on training Ukrainians. But look, I mean, I had a good chat with Prime Minister Sunak. We spoke for probably about 35, 40 minutes maybe. Talked about Israel, Gaza, talked obviously about Ukraine in particular, talked about New Zealand and the UK working together in the Pacific, and particularly around free trade agreements and CPTPP, and also talked about personal people-to-people connections as well. So it was a very good first meeting.
And in terms of the Hutu targets,
Sorry?
the Hutu targets, are our New Zealand forces over there already?
Well, as you know, we've sent 6 Defence Force to be part of coalition arrangements in the Red Sea. It's really important we stand up for our values. We are a small country, we're a trading nation, we believe in the rule of law, we believe in the freedom of navigation, and so I won't comment on the operations in particular, but suffice to say that our team is there, part of that coalition of countries there.
Were there any concerns raised in the conversation around this operation increasing the risk of harm to New Zealanders?
No. All right. Thank you, team. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You were booed, drowned out by Waitangi. Do you think you actually achieved anything?
Well, absolutely. I delivered the message I came to deliver, and a small minority of people, you'll notice the actual host, were all listening, misbehave, but I think New Zealanders can make up their own mind. Does that really change the importance of the message getting across?
What do you think into that? You said you want to have a contest of ideas. You said if you want to have a contest of ideas, you need to show up with some. Is that necessary?
Yeah, absolutely, because we've had people who have engaged in a debate that's really just attacking people. I think it's important we start debating ideas rather than attacking people.
Peter Tiffany has also offered an apology for you having the speech interrupted. How do you respond to that?
Oh, well, look, Peter's always been a very honourable man, and I'm grateful to hear that. I just note that it was actually a pretty small portion of people who aren't actually mana whenua here who were interrupting the speeches. Actually, it was a very successful event where the real hosts were actually sitting and listening very respectfully. And I think one of the bad things that could come out of their behaviour is for the rest of New Zealand to see their behaviour as representing all Māori. It most certainly does not.
Peter Tiffany also said that he would like the Prime Minister to kill the Treaty Principles Bill in its tracks. What would happen to the coalition government if the Prime Minister did that?
Well, it's to be determined, but certainly so far everyone in the coalition is honouring all their commitments, and if we find that commitments aren't being honoured, then that's uncharted territory. I don't think anyone wants to go there, and that's why we've got a tight coalition that's honouring all its commitments.
Would it collapse of the government if the Treaty Principles Bill was killed?
Well, put it this way, we are all working together for a better New Zealand, which requires honouring our commitments to each other. So like I say, it's uncharted territory. I'm not going to speculate what that would mean.
What was it like
during the negotiating process, was there nothing else that Christopher Luxon could have offered you instead of the treaty principles bill? Was that an absolute bottom line for you, or you weren't going to go into government with them?
New Zealand cannot continue and flourish so long as some citizens are in partnership with the Crown and others have a different status. That is totally incompatible with liberal democracy as practiced all around the world, and it's been a disaster in so many places it's been tried.
Was there nothing else he could have offered you?
I think I just answered how important that discussion is.
What was it like?
Take us kind of into your mind how it was sitting there in the front row, hearing what was pretty strong kōrero. I know that's expected, but very, very personal to you, and also, you know, you felt the need to respond to some claims that were made during that some of the speeches there. Can you take us into that space?
My view is facts are friendly. Always happy to debate the facts, but when people say things that are untrue. For example, one of the speakers insinuated that I've said that some people are unwashed and that she had felt the need to claim that she bathes regularly. Well, I felt that was really unfortunate that she was saying that, because she was totally, not just misrepresenting what I'm saying, but actually saying something I've never said. I also, frankly, think the way that I was told that it was a form of weakness to rely on a woman, a very strong and powerful woman, by the way, to do a job, I just couldn't believe I heard that in 2024. It was astonishing.
Your reaction to that, and also your, how you were received. It was pretty, the crowd had some things to say about that, and there's certainly a bit of wasn't as settled as it had been before. So take us through your thoughts there.
I think every time anybody comes and speaks up at Waitangi, it becomes unsettled. But I had a really great opportunity, and I'm very, very humbled that I was allowed to speak on the Maho in a pohere where it's never happened before. For me, that's humbling, not only for myself, but for my girls, for my tipuna as well, to be given that opportunity. Now, some wanted to drown me out, and I think that more had to do not with what I was saying, but rather the fact that I was even speaking.
I'm sorry, but the wahine and the crowd that I was standing with were really proud to be able to see you and to kōrero on the Maho, on your marae, on your whenua. So those that were perhaps criticising you may not actually have been mana whenua?
They may not have been, and I think the whole thing is that the dialogue is open. We are here to listen, and we are here to move forward and move this country forward as one, respecting and understanding the treaty and what the articles mean, but allowing everybody in New Zealand to have the same tino rangatiratanga. And I was very, very humbled to be given the opportunity to speak my truth, which is about my whakapapa and my heritage, where I come from, and the future that I want for my family, my children, and the other children that are going to be growing up here in New Zealand.
Do you think, cutting through the narrative then that is out and about amongst our whānau, that it might be more receptive if it came from perhaps you and Karen?
I don't think that it matters whether it comes from Karen or myself, whether it comes from Brooke, from Laura, whether it comes from any of the tāne. What it means is that we have the opportunity to discuss, to get that conversation going, and to hear and listen from and to the other side.
Joe.
Can I just ask, there's a lot of chat about how things were done differently today. Obviously, some of the leaders of the Hikoi, Hana, etc. were able to come in and chat. Do you think that perhaps the way that things evolved today might actually speak a little bit to the fact that race relations are actually progressing in New Zealand, and that there was able to be an exchange so honestly and frankly as what happened today?
I think when you peel it all away, there are a small minority of people that really misbehaved and were offensive to tikanga, offensive to people's efforts to be there and have the exchange. But overwhelmingly, it was a positive exchange of ideas, and I think people on all sides have got closer to understanding where the other side's coming from.
Do you think any progress was actually made today?
Yeah, because I can appreciate that there are people there that are genuinely concerned and hurt and concerned about their mana with respect to the Treaty Principles Bill. But I also got some insight into why they think that. I think it's because of some of the things that have been said about what we're trying to do, which is totally wrong. So that was helpful knowledge, and I think that today is just one more day and one more step to greater understanding towards 2040.
Can you just to be a bit more specific on that? Like, what was a particular takeaway that you had around the Treaty Principles Bill today?
Oh, there were people who said that we want to take it away. There were people there that said we want to belittle Māori language. I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth in either case.
So, can I just ask a similar vein? The Treaty Principles Bill is dead without the support of two other parties who don't currently support it. How do you think you're going in convincing them to take it up?
Well, it's very simple. First of all, we go through the process, we consult, we draft the bill, we introduce it to Parliament, we let people have their say in a select committee. That in itself is valuable. But I suspect that there's a thirst for this kind of discussion. It's already very popular when the public are asked, and I suspect that the public might do more to persuade my coalition partners than I ever will.
And how many people do you think you convinced in the crowd today?
Oh, there were people that came up to me afterwards, as there always are, who say, look, that was pretty fiery, but good on you, and you might have more support than you think.
David, there's a way to read your speech, a way to read the Prime Minister's speech today, which is that he was telling everybody, we do not want to talk about the treaty, we do not want to talk about the rail, we're going to get on with economic issues and education-related matters. And the implication may have been, and therefore we are going to shut down this treaty bill as soon as we can.
Well,
he reiterated to us just now that the long-standing position of the National Party is not to support a referendum.
Well, it's the Simon Wilson's long-standing position of containing great hope that springs eternal. But actually, you can do both. You know, I'm responsible for the Treaty Principles Bill. I'm also responsible for bringing back kura haurua or charter schools. I'm also the Minister of Regulation, responsible for making it easy to do business and, for example, build homes in this country. So actually, you can do both at the same time. Yep, we know that the National Party has a different position, but we're taking the bill to first reading, and all bets are off after that. We'll keep working to persuade them.
How did you receive that riddle from the upper court today? Because yours was distinctly different from the riddle that was laid down for the Prime Minister and Winston Peters.
Yeah, it was pretty fiery and far out. Those guys really gave it heaps, but at the end of the day, that's the way it works in that particular part of the culture, and I was really honoured to be a part of it. And if they're singling me out for special attention, well, I give as good as I get.
Because it was special attention, and that shows the respect that they actually have for you. So it's not as though they were disrespecting you, but they showed you mana. That's, I think, some of the lost in the misunderstanding of tikanga and kawa on the marae.
Well, exactly. And look, I mean, it was very hot, and those guys were giving it everything. One guy apparently lost his pants at one point, so that's commitment for you.
He actually deliberately...
Talking to the Pōwhiri Haka group, they said it was about sending you a message around your divisive policies, and that's why they had a united group of Ngāpuhi Hapu come up to you to deliver that riddle. It was about sending you a message according to the Pōwhiri Haka group.
Yeah, and I understand that that's some people's sentiment, but ultimately, you're not going to kill ideas with a gun nor a taiaha. You actually have to exchange the ideas, and I'm very happy to talk to them about why maybe they don't need to be so worried about the Treaty Principles Bill.
Talking to people...
Look, I think that he confronted them in the limited time he had before he met some diplomats very forcefully. And of course, one great advantage that he has is that he can quote events that have happened over at least 2 centuries.
And speaking to people on the...
And just on the Treaty Principles Bill, how attached are you to the referendum aspect of it? Or could we see it perhaps sort of shift to a point where it's not necessarily a referendum, the binary choice is the issue, but it's an actual piece of legislation that's passed by parliamentarians?
Well, put it this way, end-of-life choice started off with no referendum, and because of the political process it did have one. Maybe this goes the other way, but at this point what is critical is that this evolution of the treaty principles actually has some input from someone who's not a judge or a member of the Waitangi Tribunal or the public service, i.e. the great unwashed, as it's been said, the wider New Zealand public.
David, you've said in your op-ed this morning, and I think you've just said here in this press conference, that you don't believe that the treaty is a partnership. How then do you explain Article 2? Because Peter Tipene said here that that was the promise of the treaty.
Well, Article 2 says that this tiroranga tiratanga, or self-determination for all New Zealanders, and there's certainly people who will say that what was in mind at the time was New Zealanders as as understood at that time. My question is, there's subsequently been a lot more people, including some who have arrived on the plane this morning at Auckland Airport. Should all New Zealanders now include them having tirangatira-tanga? And if they do, then you no longer have a circumstance where some New Zealanders are in partnership with the Crown and others aren't. And I put it to you that there is no sustainable future, there's no good model in the world where some citizens have a certain constitutional setting in place and others don't.
Speaking to people on the grounds over the last few days, a common theme has been that they feel the government is taking away their Māoritanga. Can I get your response to that?
No, I don't think that this government is doing that whatsoever. I mean, we are prepared to devolve services and everything from education to health to welfare in order that people can do by Māori for Māori solutions. It's the previous government that centralised everything from Te Pūkenga to the healthcare system. This government is interested in actually allowing all people to self-determine and do things their way, including Māori. That's strengthening Māoritanga. Thing is, it also strengthens people who might come from a Pacific background, people who might be Chinese or Indian, or people who actually don't think ethnicity is a big part of their life at all and just want services delivered their way. That's what devolution is about.
And a couple that I spoke to... A couple I spoke to said that they actually felt scared about their te reo Māori, that it had been beaten out of their grandparents and their kids had it through kohanga and that things would change. So what is your government doing to ensure the language continues to flourish?
I think that's a good example. I mean, frankly, I think the best thing the government could do to ensure the language flourishes is sort out getting te reo Māori on Duolingo. I mean, that would get a lot of people learning very cheaply overnight. But putting that aside, I actually think that we're going to see devolution. I'm in charge of education, early childhood education. I'm responsible for partnership schools being reintroduced, and we're absolutely in favour of kohanga reo. I mean, you've got to remember kohanga reo, or Dame Eritana was a founding member of ACT, so we've got a long pedigree in that educational choice movement, and that is the ultimate self-determination. I might mention that while we're at it, it was Richard Prebble who deregulated the radio networks and made iwi radio possible. Now, in terms of devolving, allowing markets to occur, actually the ACT Party has a long heritage, even before it was formed, of allowing people to self-determine in terms of the reo, and that's why I say we believe in tirangatira-tanga, perhaps more sincerely than anyone.
You've mentioned all the other hats that you have, and obviously that's a combination of work you want to do, but also policies that party want to get through. Does it get to a point, will it get to a point, do you think, or would you consider a point where all of the treaty principle stuff is actually sucking up way too much oxygen and is just becoming the only narrative, and that actually it's not worth it because of the other stuff that you've said that you want to get done?
I actually think the constitutional settings that New Zealand has are foundational. If we want to work out how to get homes built faster and get infrastructure built faster and start using genetics, then we actually need to have some agreement about what science is, about who gets consulted, about what citizenship is. It's quite challenging to solve those other problems when we're constantly required to believe that there are two types of science, that there are two realities, when in actual fact there is ultimately one humanity right around the globe.
Isn't it possible that multiple realities can exist at the same time?
Are you saying that fundamentally you have to get the Constitution and the treaty principle stuff done in order to do anything else? Is that what you're saying? Yeah?
I don't think you have to do it first, but I believe that when people look back on this time, people will say, well, if you don't have an understanding of what the treaty really means and whether tirangatira-tanga extends to all or just some, it's going to be all the harder to solve those other problems as we head towards 2040.
What makes you think you have public support on the treaty principles bill you mentioned earlier?
Well, you're from NZME. I mean, you recently published a poll that said 60% agreed with our treaty principles and 18% opposed, so I guess probably reading your media outlet.
Are you going to jump off the bridge?
Is this now, were you back using metaphors or literally? Look, I'd love to, but I'll probably be back up in the north where I've spent a large part of my life when things are a bit cooler. Thank you very much, folks. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, but some members of my caucus did, and they wondered if the poor guy was cold. So.
Which members?
Kia ora. Did Winston come in a bit hot today?
Winston's been coming here for the majority of his 70 years. So I think when Hone and who's my relation, and Annette and the others, when you lead with your chin with Winston Peters, you just know that there's going to be a robust, colourful, if not fiery response.
Was it more than you expected, or did you feel quite comfortable about all of that today?
Well, there is a mercurial quality to the leadership style of my leader. And you know why it comes out that way? Because this is a person who deeply values his own legacy. The person who stopped Ngāti Wai in 1975 losing their land. The man whose grandfather was one of the original owners of Little Barrier and Poor Knights. And the man whose nana is the sister of King Tāwhiao. So you've got to imagine, he's not just standing as a parliamentarian, he's also standing as a leading Ngāpuhi identity.
When you're telling people to get an education and cut the crap though, is that sort of reading the room?
Like I said, why would anyone be surprised about Winston's delivery? I'm not.
Can you tell us a little bit about the haka up your Toriro today? What was the purpose of that?
The rangatahi said to me, Matua, our parents don't fully agree with everything you say, but when you speak, because you are the receptacle of the Ngāpuhi history, we stand with you. We draw a distinction between parliamentary politics and your status as an identity here in Taitokerau, and they had no compunction in doing that. Many of them are related to me. I think the haka went on a little bit long. They should have chosen a shorter haka, but then I'm hardly twiggy, so I'll just stop right there.
Pita offered an apology.
Sorry?
Pita came out and offered an apology to you guys on the reception that was received by Winston and David Seymour, on behalf of the crowd, saying that it was not appropriate.
Oh, okay.
What do you make of that?
Oh, look, I had a burst of it at Ratana, and I helped incite it at Ratana. Once I got hoha with that young boy from Tūhoe. So it was a bit disappointing, and it does make it a bit awkward for similar sessions of the whare kōrero. But I think both Winston and I know people have got pent-up emotions. Whether you think they're driven by misinformation or different priorities, people are on edge.
How do you think the day reflects on Ngāpuhi?
Oh, it was a classic Ngāpuhi day. You can look, the great saying of Ngāpuhi, and ladies, don't boot me when I say this, is Ngāpuhi ko haoro, Ngāpuhi of 100 holes, i.e. each hole, each valley, each hollow has its own musket. So you're always going to get a whole lot of diversity in Ngāpuhi, and generally they come together when there's a common foe. I hope today I didn't represent that common foe.
We saw the tikanga evolve quite a bit today with the way that the likes of Hone Harawira and its rights, so a lot of them were able to come on, the haka was able to come on, etc. Do you think that is, progress from Ngāpuhi and progress within race relations, that the conversation is more wholesome, I guess, and the exchanges are more frank now than perhaps they have been in previous years?
Yeah, when I grew up, there were very rare occasions when women spoke, other than on the marae where the men from the Māori battalion either were too damaged or they never came home. So I grew up in our little marae, lots of women spoke. But look, I celebrate whoever the architects were today, of Mere speaking, my ACT colleague from Ngāpuhi, and I do think that they were unnecessarily rude to her, given that her whānau produced the last regimental sergeant major of the Māori battalion, a genuine Kauri tree and tōtara tree. But hey, young people, I was young once, you get in the hot sun and get a bit of passion in you, you get slightly carried away.
Speaking to people.
Natui also invited the other iwi to sit with them as an
Yeah.
A bit unusual.
Yeah. I can count on the limited number of mati I've got on my hand, seeing the Māori, the Irish Māori camp. Oh, no, I think seeing certainly the leader of the Ratana Church, our own Bishop Kittle, and King Tuheitia, that was a very significant presence, and that's why I recited the genealogy, because his grandmother comes from Ngāpuhi in the far north.
Speaking to...
The referring to the various iwi, and it starts called you out for not mentioning Harawa. Was that an oversight, or was she right?
Well, Annette and I went to university together. She's made an art form about correcting me. So, but having said that, I was referring to the iwi that who had a lot to do with the creation of the Waitangi Waka and the Waitangi Meeting House. Pardon?
She made an art form of it. Was it good art?
Well, I wouldn't underestimate Annette's ability to get under the skin of Māori men.
Speaking to people,
the crowd here really wanted the treaty issues dealt with, and a common sentiment I heard was that, you know, we might not agree with Jane Jones or Winston Peters or David Seymour, but at least you're engaging. The Prime Minister didn't. What did you make of that? Do you think that's appropriate to just sidestep the main kaupapa?
Oh, I think the guy was asked to talk about 2040, and that was the kaupapa that Pita Tipene laid down, and 2040 is partially about the treaty because it's 200 years, but it's about a whole lot of other things as well. It's about the ethos that drives lifestyle choices, it's about demography, it's about the future of our country that contains challenges for all sorts of New Zealanders. So no, I didn't think it was off colour at all. I do think, however, that I personally, and I'm going to take a big role in helping to navigate the way forward on the treaty principles matters.
what does that look like?
Well, number one, I haven't seen what was the final shape and form of the principles, but it strikes me as extraordinarily challenging to distill or isolate principles underlying this bilingual document between the British Crown and the tribes of Māoridom without acknowledging that most of the treaty settlements have resulted in distinctive property rights being recognised that are not the same as the property rights of most other Kiwis. All you've got to do is look at the Māori Land Court, the Ngaitahu settlement, the Tainui settlement, and that was the essential bargain in doing these earlier settlements. In our party, New Zealand First, we're not doing anything to unravel those settlements, and we realise that there are unique entitlements that were part of the deal to do those settlements.
So your leader identified himself as someone who had defended land rights for decades.
Yep.
Called out the crowd for not having done that. This was a crowd full of protesters over the decades going back to Ngātama. So who were here 53 years. You may know there's a photographic exhibition here at the moment.
Oh yes, I think I feature in it.
You're in it.
Yes, much skinnier. Yeah.
But I just wonder why he was complaining that he wasn't talking to people with a...
He was possibly talking to the younger generation. I didn't. I'm not trying to dodge you, Simon. I didn't pay much attention to that. But you know, you in Māoridom, you expect a certain level of respect if you've done the hard yards. And whether people like it or not, I mean, it was Winston who countenanced the $100 million being spent.
Why did he not respect their kaupapa?
Pardon?
I'm really asking you, why do you think he didn't respect their kaupapa?
Oh, I think respect goes two ways, and Winston has had a long established history of fighting and delivering on lost Māori land. He gave Tūhoi their farm back, he saved the Tauranga iwi and their kiwi fruit developments, much to the chagrin of Ruth Richardson, but no one remembers that. It's all as if everything that's making people hoha today just started with the arrival of our government 10 weeks ago, and I think that's what he was responding to.
For the Prime Minister's speech, I mean, it was you yourself who said, you know, haere te Waitangi, if you're going to talk about the treaty, you come to Waitangi and you talk about it.
Yep.
The prevailing kōrero, as you well know, has been about the treaty principles bill to an extent. You know, why, surely you can't say that he is responding to the kōrero of Waitangi now in a full manner, given your comments and the comments over the last couple of days?
Well, look, my kōrero was directed, as you well know, to Rahui Papa and the others who were playing up at Ratana. But there's going to be a lot more political water under this bridge.
On your right, you're talking about you're going to take up a bigger role in this space. Is it because the likes of the Prime Minister isn't discussing it?
No, I just think that given that I've led with my chin over the future of the Waitangi Tribunal, I got pinged for that by Annette. I've led with my chin that there's 57 references to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi in legislation. Are all of them still relevant? Do they add value? Do we even know what they mean? And I've got to get out there and convince more people that that does not mean a distortion or a disfigurement of the articles, the upoko of the treaty. I mean, in 2040, the treaty will still be around. In 2040 our population will have changed because immigration is growing week by week, which is another issue, but I say to our iwi, you know, you need to be absolutely sure that we develop and create opportunities and boost the confidence of our own people as the nature of New Zealand's population changes.
Is changing tech giving some sort of legitimacy to David Seymour's debate or something? Because I mean, you have a long history in terms of progressing the use of reo, and now you seem to be saying, well, you want a piece of his pie and the sort of debate that he's having. So is this about you being there and being present in that conversation because you feel like you have a little bit more mana or a little bit more leeway because of your history?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not suggesting that my pedigree or legacy should prevent him from leading the debate, but we're three parties in this government, and we need to ensure that as this debate goes forward, we have a long-term view to the interests of all Kiwis.
You don't have to help him though, you're choosing to.
Pardon?
You don't have to help him, you're choosing to.
No, he can do his own heavy lifting, but I can't walk away from the fact New Zealand First in our coalition agreement, we didn't go for a bill, but we did make a request that the other parties back us on changes. Now, they're not inordinately significant because they're reviews, but I just think it'd be a bit disingenuous if I didn't actually put my hand up and say, well, partly what we campaigned on does require us to own up to it.
Speaking to people milling about on the treaty grounds over the last few days, a key thing that's come up at least a couple of times is that people fear that the government is taking away their, quote, Māoritanga. Can I get your response to that?
Yeah, I don't believe anything that our government is doing is delegitimising a personal choice that many people make to be Māori. Let's face it, if you go to Ngāi Tahu, if you were to measure how far they're away from their original Blue Book tupunas, it's a long way. But they are entitled to choose, like Maturata said when he changed the Māori Land Act. You just have to be an uri, you have to be a descendant of a Māori, and if you choose to accentuate that part of your whakapapa, they're entitled to do that. And I just genuinely cannot see anything that we're doing with the language, funding wānanga, funding marae, delegitimises what it means to be Māori. We are opening up a debate, I'll admit, on the role of the tribunal and the direction of travel in terms of how many other places is a reference pertaining to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi going to be used. But I don't think it's fair to say that delegitimises people's choices to accentuate, own and embrace their sense of Māoriness. Was I?
Yeah, you said that you wanted to see him speak from the heart. That's how you do it, listen and respond. And this year he read his speech. He began his position.
Yes, oh well, some of us grew up in the art of oratory and have the ability to speak off the cuff. And I think the man today is the Prime Minister. Helen Clark always had notes. John Key not necessarily did, but most of the words that he used were blown away by the wind. That's why there's not much of a legacy from John Key.
Will you give him some lessons?
Oh, he's got Tama there. Yeah, Tama will keep an eye on helping the PM, but if the PM ever requires any tautoho from myself, of course I'll give it. Okay. Thank you very much. E te iwi.